In the early 20th century, the world was teetering on the brink of another major conflict. The global stage was fraught with tension, particularly between the rising power of Japan and the established might of the United States. Japan's aggressive expansion in Asia was a significant cause for concern. Their invasion of China, for instance, was a clear demonstration of their growing military prowess and imperial ambitions. This act of aggression didn't sit well with the United States. The US, in an effort to curb Japan's expansionist endeavors, placed a crippling embargo on the island nation. This embargo severely limited Japan's access to vital resources necessary for war: oil, steel and iron, to name a few. As the diplomatic negotiations between the two nations reached a stalemate, Japan found itself cornered. With resources dwindling and their ambitions thwarted, the land of the rising sun was forced to contemplate a drastic course of action. With negotiations failing and resources dwindling, Japan decided on a drastic course of action. December 7th, 1941, a date which would live in infamy. As the first blush of dawn painted the Pacific skies, an armada of Japanese aircraft carriers, hidden beneath the cloak of the early morning mist, launched their deadly payload. Over 300 planes, a mix of bombers and fighters, took to the skies, their sights set on a tranquil harbor some 200 miles away. Pearl Harbor, home to the US Pacific Fleet, was about to witness a devastating surprise attack. The morning calm was shattered as the first wave of Japanese bombers swooped in, their deadly cargo raining down on the unsuspecting American vessels. Battleships, cruisers and destroyers that had been peacefully at anchor were suddenly ablaze, their decks transformed into infernos of twisted metal and billowing smoke. Caught completely off guard, the American forces scrambled to respond, but the element of surprise was against them. Anti-aircraft guns roared to life, their tracers streaking across the sky, but for many it was already too late. The USS Arizona, a proud symbol of American naval power, was hit and sunk, taking with her over 1,000 sailors and Marines. The second wave of Japanese planes followed, adding to the chaos and destruction. Aircraft hangars, repair shops, and the naval yard were targeted, ensuring that recovery efforts would be hampered and delayed. The devastation was total, the surprise complete. In the midst of the attack, the human cost became painfully clear. Over 2,400 Americans lost their lives that day, with a further 1,200 wounded. The loss of life was staggering, a tragedy that would reverberate through the decades. The attack lasted less than 2 hours, but the impact was profound. The Japanese had sought to cripple the US Pacific Fleet, to buy themselves time and space to expand their empire across the Pacific. But in doing so, they had awoken a sleeping giant. In less than 2 hours, the Japanese attack left a major part of the US Pacific Fleet in ruins and changed the course of World War II. The smoke had barely cleared when the impact of the attack started to be felt. As the dust settled over the decimated Pacific Fleet, the United States, once a nation on the periphery of the global conflict, found itself thrust into the epicenter of the Second World War. On December 8th, the day following the attack, President Franklin D. Roosevelt stood before a joint session of Congress and declared a state of war against Japan. The declaration was met with near unanimous approval, with only one dissenting vote. The attack on Pearl Harbor had a profound effect on the American psyche. It was a shocking wake-up call that ended the nation's era of isolationism. Prior to the attack, many Americans were hesitant to get involved in the war, preferring to focus on domestic issues. But the attack on Pearl Harbor stirred a sense of unity and determination across the nation. The American people rallied together, galvanized by the events at Pearl Harbor. They were ready to support the war effort in any way they could, whether it was by enlisting in the military, working in factories to produce war materials, or buying war bonds to fund the war effort. The attack had not weakened America. Instead, it had awakened a sleeping giant. The attack on Pearl Harbor also had significant strategic implications. It led to the United States directing its military might towards the Pacific theater, engaging in a fierce and brutal war against Japan. This redirected focus eventually led to critical turning points in the war. such as the Battle of Midway and the Island Hopping Campaign, which slowly but surely pushed back the Japanese forces. In the aftermath of the attack, the United States emerged as a global superpower. Its military, economic and political influence felt around the world. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a catalyst that transformed the United States from a nation on the sidelines to a key player on the world stage. The Pearl Harbor attack, a tragic event that thrust the United States onto the global stage of World War II. The Pearl Harbor attack, a pivotal moment in world history. It's a tale of rising tensions, a day of infamy and the profound aftermath and impact that reverberates to this day. We've journeyed back to explore the events leading up to this monumental attack, a time of escalating disagreements and mounting pressure. We've walked through the tragic day itself, December 7th, 1941, when the skies of Hawaii were darkened by the ominous clouds of war. We've examined the aftermath, the shock, the outrage and the rallying cry of a nation that would not be defeated. And we've looked at the impact, the way this singular event forever altered the course of world history, propelling the United States onto the global stage of World War II. This was not just a moment in time, but a turning point, a catalyst for change on a global scale. A day of infamy, a turning point in history. The Pearl Harbor attack will forever be remembered as the event that drew the United States into World War II.